Hello everyone, back to our latest Star Wars videos. So, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, has been conducting another interview, this time with Hollywood Reporter. And the great thing about Mark when he does interviews is that he just says whatever the heck he likes. He doesn't care whatsoever what he says. And for once, he hasn't actually been throwing shade at The Last Jedi, but he has been throwing a little bit of shade at JJ Abrams and The Force Awakens, and also at Disney. So we'll go over a couple of points of the interview in a moment. Just to say, if you're enjoying the Star Wars content on this channel, please like, share and subscribe. Use the comments to let us know that you're enjoying what we're doing. We're trying to rebuild the website after being dormant for quite some time, around 5 years. Website been dormant for 5 years. So please like, share and subscribe to website and let us know in the comments you're enjoying the Star Wars content. We're at IGN.com for this one. So, first of all, Mark Hamill pitched a different ending for Star Wars The Force Awakens to JJ Abrams' report from Adam Bankhurst. So, it says that Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, recently described a different ending to Star Wars The Force Awakens that he pitched to director JJ Abrams. That would have been a touching callback to A New Hope. Talking to The Hollywood Reporter on the Awards Chatter podcast for his role in history's Nightfall, their discussion eventually went to Star Wars. During their conversation, Hamill revealed a pitch he gave to Abrams that would have led to the reunion of Luke, Leia and Han. "You can still have me coming at the very end," Hamill explains, "but how about this? Leia's trying to contact me telepathically. She gets frustrated because there's no answer, so she rushes to the new Death Star." That's the ridiculous super weapon that they have in The Force Awakens that is called something completely different to the Death Star, but it is basically the Death Star, and again, complete lack of originality with that, of course. Anyway, Mark goes on, "That's 3 so far, and she almost gets there when she's stopped by 2 stormtroopers. Just before she's abducted, one stormtrooper turns to the other and blows him away, pulls off his helmet and says, 'Hi sis, I'm here to rescue you,'" which of course is a throwback to the original Star Wars film. Hamill goes on, Hamill thought it would have blown the roof off the joint. What's more, this scene would have led to the inevitable death of Han Solo, with Luke and Leia there to be with him at the end. Mark says it's more effective to have people that really have a history with Han Solo witness his death and be unable to stop it. His wife, the mother of his child, his best friend, instead of 2 characters, which of course is Finn and Rey, instead of 2 characters that have known him for 20 minutes. During the same interview, Hamill also discussed how he believes that Star Wars fatigue is a real thing and that he even has experienced it. And so we'll move on and have a look at what he said about Star Wars fatigue in this interview next. So the headline: Mark Hamill believes Star Wars fatigue is a real possibility. Matt Purslow is the writer of this at IGN.com. So it says, Mark Hamill has suggested that audiences may be experiencing Star Wars fatigue in the wake of the numerous Star Wars projects coming out of Disney. Talking to The Hollywood Reporter on the Awards Chatter podcast, Hamill said, "I'm not going to tell Disney how to run their business, but is there a possibility of Star Wars fatigue? Yeah, I think there is. I've experienced it to a certain degree, and they never listen to my ideas anyway, so who needs them?" It goes on, the comment came as the podcast discussion covered the box office underperformance of Solo, a Star Wars story which grows almost $393 million worldwide, offering a slight return on the film's $250 million budget and multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. That film is still at a loss. I'm not sure what we're talking about in terms of a slight return. That film is still at a major loss compared to what it grossed. Going further on, it says, but could box office figures be down to audience fatigue? Solo did arrive just 5 months after Star Wars The Last Jedi, and it was before Star Wars failed to be released in 3 years. So is it possible? It was launched to a crowd of less enthusiastic critical reviews and had generated a little discontent after fan favourite directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were removed from the project and replaced by Ron Howard. While Hamill may be concerned about Star Wars fatigue, Disney certainly isn't. They already have animation with Clone Wars, Rebels, and what's it called, The Mandalorian. That's a Jon Favreau TV series, the Luke Skywalker actor noted of Disney's current and upcoming projects. The Disney Plus streaming service is also due to offer Star Wars Rogue One prequel about Rebel spy Cassian Andor, starring Diego Luna. If you're not suffering Star Wars fatigue, be sure to keep an eye on IGN this weekend as we bring you all of the latest from Star Wars Celebration, where we'll hopefully learn about Episode 9 and get the first details of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So, more shade from Mark Hamill, and we know he's a very unhappy actor anyway in terms of what has happened through with his character and his role in the sequel trilogy. But 2 points I want to pick up on. First of all, in terms of Star Wars fatigue. So I'm a bit dubious about that concept, really. This is like the biggest IP in the world. If there is a good project, then people will watch it. If there's a good project, there's going to be an audience for it. I think the problem that we're seeing, maybe they are churning out a little bit too regularly. George Lucas had them once every 3 years, and with a long break or some originals to the prequels. I think you can ramp up the production value a little bit more than that, but I suppose they might be overdoing it slightly with the amount of product that they're producing. But I think the main issue really is the quality of the project that they are going through. If they've got good quality product, there will always be an audience to watch that when it comes to Star Wars. Star Wars fans will always turn out and view quality products. The problem, I'm afraid, is that the product that they are churning out is not up to standard. It's not up to the standard that Star Wars fans expect. There's not the creativity going into these projects that Star Wars fans expect. There's not the time, thought, and effort going in. It's all being conducted very haphazardly. You know what I'm going to say about this. I'm just repeating myself and banging the drum in the videos, but it is so correct that the sequel trilogy is not being produced with an overarching narrative or theme. They don't know where they're going with the sequel trilogy. They're just throwing it all out there, going off in different directions with different directors, trying to make something stick, and at the end of the day, all you've got is a mess. And The Last Jedi is the result of that very, very bizarre and haphazard production sequence that we've had with these sequel trilogy films. The Last Jedi was extremely divisive, which actually director Rian Johnson has admitted it's what he wanted. He was setting out to make a divisive film. He wanted to break the Star Wars fandom, and he did it. And of course, when you've done that, it's very, very hard to put it back together again, as they found with Solo, A Star Wars Story. Now, I've never actually seen Solo, A Star Wars Story, so I can't comment about the quality of that product, but the quality of The Last Jedi which was a very poor Star Wars film and not up to the standard that Star Wars fans expect. That undoubtedly harmed the performance of Solo, A Star Wars Story. But there are other problems, of course, with Solo, A Star Wars Story. I'm not sure anybody particularly wanted to see a prequel about Han Solo. The marketing of that film was all over the place as well. And then, of course, there's the total fiasco with the directors, mentioned in the article, Lord and Miller, who were fired by Kathleen Kennedy after getting around 70-80% of the film shot, and then they brought in Ron Howard and started all over. I mean, this is just total mismanagement by Kathleen Kennedy, and it's all adding up to mean that Star Wars is underperforming, both in terms, certainly with Solo Star Wars Story, certainly in terms of the box office, but also it's affecting other things like the toys. Their toys are not selling as they used to. Star Wars toys were always a huge money spinner, and they really aren't moving in the way that they should be moving. And haven't for some time. So there are a lot of problems there, but I'm not sure that it's particularly Star Wars fatigue. If they was making a good quality product, if The Last Jedi had been well received by the fans, I don't think we'll have seen anywhere near as much backlash against Solo, A Star Wars Story. So I don't think you can put this down to Star Wars fatigue, to fan fatigue. The fans will turn out if the quality of the product is good. But increasingly, fans are realising the quality is not up to standard, and they are voting with their wallets. And then in terms of the other part of the article, going back to that, where we have Mark Hamill's idea for the end of The Force Awakens. I mean, I don't think that's a particularly good idea in itself, but it does show they could have gone in another way with The Force Awakens. It wasn't set in stone that you would only have Luke Skywalker turn up like in the final sort of 2 minutes, maybe less than that, of the movie, turn around and face Rey, and then it would go to Iris out. It would be the end of the film. And then you'd get to The Last Jedi, and you'd have a character assassination of Luke Skywalker. It wasn't necessarily the case that they would have to go in the direction Mark Hamill went in to involve Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens, but there are a lot of different ways they could have took the character, and that's just one example that Mark has there. As I say, I'm not a particular fan of that idea myself, but I think there are a lot of different directions they could have gone in. They could have stuck to George Lucas's original outline for the sequel trilogy. George wanted to have Luke on the island where he is in the sequel trilogy, alone on that darn island. George Lucas did have him there in the first half of The Force Awakens, or what would have been then just episode 7, and with Luke training the character that eventually becomes Rey. I think in George Lucas's treatment, the character is Kira, and is a relation to Han and Leia, I think. So Luke trains Kira in the first half of episode 7 on the island, and then I can't remember what the reason is, but they have to leave the island and they get involved in an adventure in the second half of The Force Awakens, or what again was that time would have been titled episode 7. They do meet back up with Han and Leia in the second half of episode 7. I'm not sure whether Han gets killed off in George Lucas's treatment in episode 7. I would suspect he probably does, because George always knew that Harrison wanted Han Solo to die, going right way back to 1980 and The Empire Strikes Back. So I suspect George would have known that the only way Harrison Ford would come on board with episode 7 would be if Han Solo died. So I suspect that was always due to play out, and probably that was always due to be at the hands of Han and Leia's son, I would have thought. I'm not sure about that, so someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But anyway, in George's treatment, Luke is in episode 7 pretty much from start to finish. The first half he is quite disillusioned, although nowhere near as bad as Rian Johnson has him in The Last Jedi. He's not suicidal. He's not like a total sort of gibbering wreck and bearing no resemblance whatsoever to the Luke Skywalker that we knew in the original films. So Luke in George's episode 7 is a bit disillusioned in the first half. He has gone to the island to be alone. But he does train Kira, who eventually evolved into Rey in the first half of episode 7. And then he goes on and becomes, gets involved in an adventure, meets up with Han and Leia. And presumably in that treatment, somewhere along the way, Han and Leia get to witness, Luke and Leia, I should say, get to witness Han's death, I would have thought. So that would have been a far, far better way to go. And again, it just goes to show what we know already, the massive sort of letdown that this project is. It is such a disappointment when you think about what they've wasted in both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. They had the opportunity to bring back the big three, Han, Luke and Leia, Mark, Harrison and Carrie. They could have done it. They could have brought them back, given one last adventure, and had that such impactful death of Han Solo with Han and Leia there to witness it and to react to it, but they didn't, and that's it. We just have to say, well, what a disappointment, what a letdown. And thanks so much, JJ Abrams and Ryan Johnson, for ruining the sequel trilogy, and also, of course, the wondrous Kathleen Kennedy. So tomorrow, Kathleen Kennedy comes out of hiding. Kathy will be at Star Wars Celebration tomorrow. She'll be on the Episode 9 panel. She'll be there with JJ Abrams and probably other actors and maybe other members of the crew on Episode 9. So we'll see what they have to say. We are expecting the title reveal and also the teaser trailer to be released at Star Wars Celebration tomorrow. So it's going to be quite a big day. I'm out in the evening tomorrow at the theatre, but I will be covering any developments that happen when I get home. So there will be videos turning up tomorrow evening and also over the weekend about Star Wars Celebration and any announcements that have been made. But as far as this piece is concerned from Mark Hamill, who we have to admire, is just so cool, the way he just says whatever he wants and doesn't really care at all, doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks. We have to admire that. And again, we just have to say what a disappointment the sequel trilogy has been. Alright, please like, share and subscribe. Let us know you're enjoying the content on the channel. We'll be back with more Star Wars content very, very soon. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.